two, one.
Hey, hello and welcome to episode 14 of CP 2049 Solid State Society. Tonight's session, we are going to be bridging. Um, Basically, this is a bridge episode um, connecting the first half of our campaign, in which we had a mid season finale, to the back half of our campaign, the season arc. Um, we are going to discuss some open points that the last session ended with, um, and make some um, connections between folks that have been kind of working around each other in Icarus One, and that's going to be the goal of tonight's session. Just a quick recap: at the end of the last session, the mid-season finale, um, Yin was able to get a hold of Neuro. Neuro seemed to have been kidnapped by the Olaf brothers, who were working for someone called Shade. Unknown to Yin and the rest of the gang, Shade seemed to be working for the um, Silverlight Pact, and what they wanted with Neuro is unknown. Um, and Yin infiltrated the warehouse on the docks with Yang, Machine, and Trauma, and with rocket launcher took everybody out in the room except for Neuro. When she did get her hands on Neuro, um, Neuro felt that Yin was, for the most part, pulling a fast one on everyone in the group. He had previously contacted Mr. Sachs, trying to explain to him the backdoor in the software and how Yin was taking Mr. Sachs um, for a ride. Mr. Sachs played the innocent employer, all the while feeding Yin information on Neuro's movements. As you all have been watching, Mr. Sachs and Yin have been working extremely closely, and it was Mr. Sachs's idea in introducing the backdoor to the program, thus giving his faction, the Chakravyuh Syndicate, access to anyone and everyone who used that software, access to their systems, their data, their networks. And unfortunately for Neuro, this was all happening in the background. He never really caught on to it, and he, for some reason, um, from his own volition, felt that he was trying to do what he could for the better of the group, all the while working against Yin's plans. Anyway, at the end of that session, Yin brought on a force to bear on the reinforcements that had come for the Silverlight Pact. Yin had her own reinforcements, attack helicopters, part of the Chakravyuh group, which she used to decimate uh, the people that were attacking them. At the end of that session, Machine, Yin, and a broken Neuro were all loaded onto a chopper. While the chopper flew off, Yang and Trauma made their way to the car and away from the docks. Tonight's session starts 5 days from that incident. It's kind of a throwback. 5 days after the explosion at the warehouse docks and the capture of Neuro by Yin. This particular scene that's then going to ensue from here is 2 days before the explosion at the Watanabe Corp's R&D facility. And as we start, the eye or Icarus One starts looking for our familiar characters. Yin, whose place was destroyed in the last session, has gone into hiding. She has taken Neuro someplace that she would not be disturbed. And the Icarus One, the eye or Icarus One, starts scanning until a familiar signature is detected. And with that, we zoom into that location. It's a rundown part of Icarus One, lots of old warehouses, destroyed buildings, destroyed um, uh, manufacturing buildings, and in that um, in a room, Nero is strapped to what looks like a hospital gurney, while Yin stands over him. Go ahead,
Mm.
Yin.
So before getting here, as usual, for these past 5 days, Ian left Dean's apartment at 11 p.m. She walked for her usual hour to get to the small isolated part where the warehouse district was, and to locate her own tiny warehouse. She took a bit of a different route this time, like every time. She didn't want anyone tracking where she was going after all. Once she located the doors to the warehouse, she made sure to triple check for anyone following her. Once she confirmed that no one was there, she took the keys out of her pocket, jingling slightly as she inserted them into the keyhole, turning the mechanism and unlocking the door. She stepped inside the dark corridor, the only light trickling in from the doorway. After locking the entrance, she made her way down the small hallway, her footsteps loud on the concrete floor. There is another door at the end of that hallway. She deliberately slowed her walk as she approached. She could already hear the sweet whimpers of her victim as she walked, muffled musical sounds. The sound was sweet to her ears. She placed a hand on the door handle and slowly opened it, reveling in the increased panic of the whimpers on the other side. She opened the door to find darkness again, but the whimpering was still there. The music was louder when she opened the door. An annoying tune, one that was impossible to fall asleep to. Her hand tapped against the wall for a few moments, trying to find the light. Once she did and clicked it on, she was greeted by one of her most favorite sights in this past week. Nero, as she is now dubbed, Zero, stepped down to the table. And she looked over every inch of his barely clothed and scarred flesh as she wanted to burn this image into her memory so she could save it for later, once he was gone. He was much skinnier than before. Malnutrition, most likely. He had an IV in his arm, but Ian wasn't exactly sure if it was really functioning correctly. Kind of tried to assess how long Zero could hold out. Maybe a few days. Maybe she hoped a few more weeks. As long as she got a little bit more fun out of it, Ian would be content. His toenails were black on the left. His nails had been pried off by the pliers, the nails sitting in a small pan beside the bed he laid on. On the right foot, small pieces of wood had been embedded underneath the toenails. He didn't like that kind of asymmetry. There were these thin wires that were embedded under his skin, starting at the lower legs, going up to the abdomen. The wires went straight through the flesh, crossways, continuing under the skin for about 3 inches or so, before sticking out the other side. And the wires were embedded through the topmost layer of the skin, out straight through the leg and deep into the muscle. And dried blood marked the entrance and exit holes of the wires. And each one was connected by a thin but taut metal string. She had a small battery hooked up, probably for electrocution at some point. And each one of these wires were connected to the other. The ends of the strings were the topmost wires, tied around the light fixture above. As any time Zero would move, the wires would pull slightly, causing him pain. She walks into the room, looking around, sees the small bucket she left, small cloth. Debating this time, maybe she could try waterboarding. She hadn't pulled all his teeth yet. That was another option. She wanted to make sure that Nero felt every single bit of pain she had felt from the disappointment of Mr. Sack, of Yang, and of what she felt in herself. All she could hear was muffled crying. She made sure to cut out his tongue on the second day. Kept whimpering how he wanted to die. Was afraid he'd swallow his tongue, making it less fun for her. So she spent her usual few hours of the night, as luckily she hadn't got called into any jobs anytime soon, working over Nero, listening to him scream and cry. The mumbled begs for her to stop, to kill him. But she would allow him to suffer on as long as he could hold out. And as long as she had him there, she would enjoy what she did and make him suffer as much as she could possibly, do. Though unfortunately the human body has a way of blocking out the torture at some point. Whenever she reached that point with Nero, she would make sure to be ever so grateful and end his life. And for the rest of the night, or at least as long as she could, she made sure that Nero suffered. And she reveled in every scream, every groan, every agonizing sound that he made. That's it.
And as the camera pans out of this horrifying scene, as Yin continues to work over the broken and beaten body and soul of Nero, the eye starts scanning across Icarus 1. 2 days pass, and the explosion at the Watanabe R&D facility is observed in Icarus 1. News reports say that it seems to be some sort of terrorist activity, maybe a rival corp, maybe somebody within the Watanabe Corporation attacking its master. Reports are sketchy, details few, and while all of Icarus's eyes are on the investigation of the Watanabe explosion, a broken, beaten, desecrated body is thrown into the waters of Icarus 1. It floats for a bit on the surface. As the face turns, you can barely make out who it is, except for that brief scowl and grimace on the face. It seems like it's Nero for that brief moment before the body sinks. And as the camera looks up from where the body was thrown, all one sees is a lithe, petite figure whip her coat in the wind and walk away. A few more days pass, and Yin is back at her hideout where she stays with Machine, and she gets a call from Mr. Sachs. Mr. Sachs requests Yin's presence in his office to discuss her future with the Corp. and her plans, and how she is going to implement some of Mr. Sachs's plans. And with that, the camera starts panning over the building where Mr. Sachs runs his jazz and nightclub, and on top of the building where Mr. Sachs generally holds private counsel with his top operatives, there we find Ian and Mr. Sachs. Ah, Ian, thank you for coming to see me on such short notice.
Yin is standing at on the roof there, looking out onto the city, hands behind her back. Her posture has definitely changed since the first time I was meeting Mr. Sachs. At first, it was fairly cowed when they first spoke, when he first extended a hand for her to join him. Now it seemed there was a change within her over these past few days. She stood straighter, more confident, shoulders back. She looked over to Mr. Sachs with a smile in her eyes. Of course. I am always available at a moment's notice for you, Mr. Sachs.
Mr. Sachs smiles at those words. Well, Miss Yin, I believe you have taken care of the hacker. He is no longer going to be a problem, I suppose.
He is not. He has been dealt with, thoroughly exploited, and disposed of. He will no longer be a problem.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that brings me back to our original proposition, the sale of the software. I assume you were able to retrieve the disk that he had?
And just to confirm, we were. I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know that he had made a copy. You have one of the discs. You don't know what really happened to the copy. The last you know, his whatever was on him was on the table in the warehouse. You captured him, and then you were told that whoever had Neuro were bringing reinforcements to that location, and that's when you guys stepped out.
We made sure to destroy the copy as we destroyed the building that it was located in.
Excellent.
There will be no evidence or anyone else who gets their hands on that one.
Well, I'm pleased, Miss Yin. That was some fine work that you pulled off in under some dire circumstances. Neuro could have exposed our entire operation, and that is something that we cannot let happen. Our syndicate cannot be exposed to such hearsay about our activities and our deals.
Of course. And I will fully take responsibility for all the damage Nero might have caused, as it was my fault for trusting him in the first place. Though this lesson that he has taught me is not one I will ever forget. nor one that I will bear repeating, mistake-wise.
And with that, Mr. Sachs gives you a look. He comes closer and, he clasps both your shoulders. Miss Yin, I know you will not allow that mistake to happen again. A part of me felt that this was bound to happen. There was, how can I put it, an innocence about you when I first met. You, despite whatever has happened to you in your past, you still held out some hope for the people that you came in touch with. But I see now that that innocence is lost and it is replaced by a force to reckon with within Icarus. And for one, I'm glad that you are working for our syndicate. To not dwell on past mistakes, we are all bound to make them. The key is not to repeat the same mistakes again, for in that we expose ourselves to our enemy.
And I will ensure that I will not make the same mistake again as trusting those who I've encountered who show me affections. I have realized they are false. And the only one that I can really fully trust in is myself. But of course, Mr. Sack, I will do everything in my power, no matter what it takes, to make the syndicate succeed. For I do not leave any job unfinished.
Mr. Sachs, pulls his hands back, looks at you, and he smiles. Yin, give me a mental save. Okay. The smile you see on his face, you have observed it maybe only a couple of times in your life. It's the smile of a father looking on its creation. It's a smile that displays pride. And you see that smile very briefly cross his face, and then it disappears as he turns to look at Icarus One. His hands behind his back, Mr. Sachs seems to be lost in thought.
And Yin steps a bit closer to him, dropping her voice slightly, taking off the mask. Thank you, Mr. Sack, for believing in me.
He nods his head and he says, "Now it's time to believe in yourself, Yin. You have hidden behind that mask long enough. You have consumed the drug from the Goto Corporation willingly. This is no judgment from my part. We all have difficult pasts where we come from. That is the world we live in. But you need to believe that the drug is no longer necessary. You need to believe that Goto Corp is no longer necessary. You need to believe that when you are primed for action, no other support is necessary.
Yin puts the mask back on. I have wanted to separate myself from the Goto Corporation for a while. Though I have attempted, it is difficult for me to fully abstain from these drugs, as they are highly addictive, and I do not know if mentally I could survive being off them. But I am willing to try whatever it takes to be separated from them, as I do not want anyone else controlling me.
Mr. Sachs nods. Yes. We have a way in, Miss Yin. Actually, you have a way in. You are already their operative, which means you have access to their systems. You have the software. Maybe it's time you did a mission for Goto Corp. Maybe it's time you find the right mission that would allow your software to provide a backdoor into their system. A drug, Miss Yin, a drug that they have been giving you, or a drug that we find most times in Icarus 1, they're all synthesized. They all have some research behind them. In the case of Goto, it is professional research. In the case of the streets, well, it's heightened Darwinism. Nonetheless, there will be data on their systems, on the correct concoction that they have been feeding you. If we can get it, the syndicate can figure out what can be an antidote. Now, you have been consuming the drug for quite some time, so the antidote will not work overnight. At the same time, the syndicate does not believe in control. How do I put this? It is not subtle. The syndicate has a different form of control, Miss Yin. Our control is just success. As you become successful with us, we believe success is a drug in itself. Pretty soon, you will see that working for the syndicate is the only way to survive in Icarus 1. And I will let you come to that conclusion, and you will come to that conclusion, I know that. That being said, if you can find a Goto Corp mission that requires espionage, use the software to get back into the system and trace the drug that they have been giving you. The syndicate will figure out an antidote, and the antidote is yours. You can manufacture it, you can do whatever you see fit with it. We will not control that.
Yin smiles again with her eyes, looking very pleased. She looks back out onto the streets of Icarus 1 from the rooftop. It is difficult to find hope in a place such as this, but Mr. Sack, you have given me that, and I am happy to be hooked on success instead of this. I will seek this espionage mission. I will accomplish it. I will make sure to free myself from the Goto Corp so that I may dedicate myself 100% to you.
Mr. Sachs nods. In the meantime, Miss Yen, I would suggest reaching out to the bartender at the Untitled. I believe in one of your reports you said he was favorable in helping us find buyers for the software before Nero decided to take things his way. Please follow up on that lead and ensure that the software is sold. We
I
can
shall.
package it in different names, different versions. It's essentially the same thing, so that no two entities believe they have the same piece of software. I would leave all the details to you. The syndicate expects that within the next couple of weeks we start getting access to different systems in Icarus One. You have a list, and this would have been given to you by Sachs when he gave you the software. I forgot to mention that. You have a list of entities that you should not approach. Be careful that the software is not sold by you to these entities. If somebody else does, it's on them. But make sure that you are not the one selling the software to the entities on that list. That is extremely important, Miss Yin, and that is non-negotiable.
Of course. And is Takeda on that list?
No, Takeda is not on that list, and Watanabe is also not on that list. When you've seen this list, you realize it's there are names, more like names on there, and how do you say this? Like more like small organizations. It seems strange, but a part of you feels that maybe that there are other Chakraview endpoints, you know.
Alright. The other thing I'd like to let you know about Mr. Sack is to keep you in the loop so you know everything going on. I am working with my brother to take down Takeda at the moment. I don't know if you care. I don't expect you to. But I thought you might want to know.
Mr. Sachs looks at you, and it's the first time you have discussed your brother Takeda to him. And the syndicate has no open quarrel with the Takeda enterprise. If this is something that you would like to do, Yin, you are free. But I would recommend caution, a lot of caution. You are now an operative of this Chakraview syndicate. That doesn't preclude you from taking missions of your own. But be very careful when you take on Takeda that Chakraview is not pulled into it.
Of course. This is purely my mission. And in regards to resources, no resources will be provided by me nor the syndicate. It is all funded by my brother. I am just along for the ride to make sure it gets done.
He looks at you, and you can see that he almost asks a question but then thinks better of it. Very well, Miss Yin. I will leave that up to you. Do so as you see fit. Know that the syndicate has your back, but in certain fights, if the syndicate is exposed, then the operative is on their own.
Of course. I understand completely. I will operate as such. Thank you, Mr. Sack.
And with that, Mr. Sachs nods and he says, well, before you head out, would you like to get a drink?
I would. That would be nice.
And he starts walking towards the elevator, hits the key, the elevator doors open, and you guys start making your way down to his office. And with that, the all-seeing eye over Icarus 1 pans out and starts scanning all over the city again. And with that, we can take a quick break.
Alright, I'll take a pause.
All right. Once we see Yin and Mr. Sachs go back into the Sax and Trombone nightclub, the eye over Icarus 1 starts scanning. Currently, the time is right after the explosion at the warehouse, and the eye over Icarus 1 catches movement of a familiar figure. It is Yang, and it seems Yang has gone back to talk to Kumiko and potentially debrief her. The eye starts zooming in over the Lotus Blossom Club, eventually getting into Kumiko's office, panning around to face both Yang and Kumiko, deep in discussion. Go ahead, guys.
When Yang first entered the office, Kumiko was pacing the room, an agitated expression on her face, which is very unusual. And when he enters, she gives him a look up and down, trying to determine if he had been harmed or what his, if he was bringing good news or bad, what his demeanor was. Yang.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. You're fine.
Oh, you are here, and you are in one piece. The explosion at the docks I heard about. Was that you?
Not directly. Yang walks into the office. He is not, he's wearing his casual attire. In his hand, he carries a briefcase, a large one. And he looks over to Kumiko and steps forward and places the briefcase down on a table. And then steps back. My sister has some contacts that we should be concerned about. But the hacker, she has him in custody. Probably dead by now.
Well, I would have preferred that he were brought to me, but concessions must be made. What is this? And she looks at the briefcase. Is this what I am hoping it is?
Yes, I think so. You see, the hacker had stolen it, and while she gloated over her prey, I decided that we might have it. But I do have some reservations about it. This program, it is built with espionage in mind, not the espionage to crack other code. Nay, instead the espionage to crack the cracker. There's a back hole built in the code, so whoever uses it opens themselves up to the true owner of this code. Now, Zypher, help me out here. Check review, right? I don't know who they are, correct? But did she ever mention it by name, that who was helping her?
No, she never mentioned the name of the organization. She has only mentioned Mr. Sachs.
Yeah, Mr. Sachs, okay.
Yes, but you would know based on whatever you saw last session that while you have your gang looking and scouring the entire city, her information was coming back to her at the same time as yours, in some cases faster, and in some cases with a little more detail than you were able to capture.
Yeah. He pauses. Whatever this organization that she works for, there's a man who fronts it named Mr. Sachs. They are well informed and well supplied. They had helicopters, a squadron of men. That is where the explosion came.
Helicopters. They are well funded then. Perhaps, well, almost certainly corporate funding. Has Kumiko ever heard of a Mr. Sachs?
I would say with Kumiko's contacts, there have been the name has popped up a couple of times, but it's it's in a different sphere altogether, right? True Adhikart is in one sphere of influence on Icarus One with the various things that it does with respect to prostitution and
Right.
All of that. But on the periphery, right, it's all underworld. You've heard the name pop up, but it's always with hushed whispers, rumors, nothing, and things sometimes contradict each other, nothing solid.
Right. A figure shrouded in mystery.
Yes.
She taps her fingernails against her desk, thinking for a minute. And Mr. Sachs, that name, it is familiar. I have heard it spoken before. Usually in hushed tones, a name spoken with respect. I shall have to follow up with some of my contacts and see what we can find out. And as for the software, perhaps we can upload it in a controlled environment that is not connected to any sort of network and acquire an expert who can remove the parts of the code that are dangerous to us. I still count this as a great victory. So well done, Yang.
He bows deeply. All for you. And as he rises, he smiles. Yes, a controlled environment for the code, certainly. I also had another thing in mind. To sow distrust. If we could possibly install this on one of Takeda's servers. This Mr. Sachs could think that they have the code.
That is an interesting possibility. However, would that not arm them preemptively against when we use the code?
Perhaps.
I do enjoy the thought of letting our enemies work against one another, weakening each other before we determine that it is time to strike. That requires further thought. Let us speak more of Chiako, though. So we know that she has someone backing her with deep pockets, someone with this mysterious Mr. Sachs as their front man. What do you think? I assume that they have some sort of hold on your sister. What is it that you think that she would desire, or why would she be working for them? Just money?
No, unlikely. She is a drug addict, but I think that was before all this started. I do not think they are the reason that she is addicted, and that is why she follows them. Perhaps this Mr. Sachs, well, if I know my sister, Chiako, only wishes the love of a father figure. It could simply be that she is that simple.
She has a slightly disgusted expression on her face. It is a shame that you think she has become so easy to manipulate, but I fear you might be correct. Do you think she is no longer an addict?
No, the last time I saw her, she certainly was still on the drug.
Well, perhaps this Mr. Sachs and that corporate backer are also supplying her with that. There's something to consider if you still consider her a potential ally, someone that would work with us. We need to know which strings to pull and what will be the best incentive for her loyalty.
He scratches his jaw. Perhaps she is growing a bit uncontrollable and unpredictable. I worry that I cannot cow her any longer if she has someone else backing her who she considers to be a father figure. She will listen to that person above all others.
I see. Well, it seems to me that the next order of business is to find more about this Mr. Sachs and determine if the corporation or entity that is funding him and your sister are working at odds, or if their efforts will work out to our benefit.
Perhaps the only thing I worry about is Chiako kept all this from me until the last moment. That the program had a back door at all.
Do you think that she knew?
I know that she knew.
I see. Well, I trust your assessment of your sister, but it appears that she may be our most direct link for information that we need. And so, while we cannot trust her, perhaps it would be best to keep that line of communication open and see what we can find out.
As you wish. He bows.
Do you think differently?
Cranes his head to one side. Purses his lips in kind of a sneer. I do not know. I do not trust her. And she is uncontrollable as she always has been. She will do anything this man says if she thinks him a father. It is all she ever wanted in life. Disgusting, really. But there will be nothing we can do to control her. If he tells her to do one thing, she will do it, even if it is against our motives to kill my father.
with someone backing her with enough funds and assets to bring helicopters with missiles into this, I think it is imperative that we find out what they want and what their stakes in this are. I am very pleased to hear that you have a very healthy mistrust of your sister and are aware of her weaknesses. I did not hear the strength of that sentiment at the last time we spoke, and it pleases me to see you, that skeptical Yang that I know, surface once again.
It is from your guidance. He bows, and then his head raises. And from her deeds. I believe that she was simply an instrument, a tool to destroy Father, and wished it as we did. But this new player will manipulate her, and that could be to our benefit or not. As you say, it is yet to be decided.
So, I will do what I can to find an expert, someone who can make sense of this code, and we will continue to work on that front. And as for your sister, again, as I say, I think she may be our most direct link into finding out about this Mr. Sachs and the people behind him. We will have to give this some more thought, but she looks at the briefcase again. You have come through. So well done. And she goes over and kind of strokes her hands over the briefcase. To think that I once despaired of ever finding a true partner.
Hey Zypher, do I know where Mr. Sachs's club is?
Uh,
I can't remember if I was ever privy to any of that.
no, yeah, I don't think you would know where his club is. Let me see.
I would know that there was a club, though, right?
Yes, but I believe I believe Trauma dropped her off. Trauma or Machine dropped her off to the club once.
So knowing, if I knew that information, can I assume that I got that out of those two? I mean, Machine, I could just ask him straight up, and he'd probably tell me.
Yes. Yep, definitely.
Give him a hot pocket, he'll do anything.
Yes.
So what was it? What was it called?
It was called the Saxon Trombone.
Yeah. He smiles, almost abashed from what she's saying. I owe everything that I have to you. This new world Bushido. This vengeance against my father. I would be a drone, a walking corpse without your guidance. And this, Mr. Sachs, one thing I do know, he owns a club, the Saxon Trombone. I believe one of my employees dropped off Kumiko there.
Ah, that is an excellent lead. More good news. Perhaps we should investigate that, either personally or send some of your more trusted footwork, do footwork and report responsibly to see what they can find out. But this is very sensitive. It may require the personal touch.
Yes, Well, the dragons have undergone a change of leadership. Perhaps they are not correct for this job.
I see. Well, we do not want to send anyone that would have the least touch of disloyalty to them, or incompetence, whatever the case may be.
Yes, I believe that the dragons have their uses, but for something such as this, I only know of one, and she stands before me.
She smiles. Well, as always, we need to proceed with care and caution, but I think that a path is becoming clear. I think it is not long before we can use this code to alter the will and remove your father from power. It has taken a long time, but I think that the time is very close.
Yang simply smiles at that. Hi.
She says, "Is there anything else you have to report?"
No, that is all of consequence. There were some men that attempted to abduct Nero and take the code from him. Zypher, did they say who they were? I'm sorry.
No, not that you guys would have heard. Yeah.
I believe they're from the mainland.
Well, it is not entirely surprising that another faction may have been interested in acquiring this code, or perhaps he had simply angered someone else, although I am not a great believer in coincidence.
They did not seem to like him overly much. It appeared that they were torturing him when we got there. But, well, that was no problem for my friend called Machine. A dim-witted fellow, but easy to control. Hopefully not too easy. He seems to have an infatuation with Kumiko.
You mean
Her-
Chiako?
Oh, I'm sorry. Chiaka. Yes, of course. He kind of sneers and he says, her love of gaijin.
Oh, do you think she cares for him as well?
I use love in a superficial manner.
It is just always wise to be aware of possible handles on people that you may need to convince.
Yes, the other one we have working for us calls himself Trauma. I believe we should research his background. There is something off about him.
Off, you say? Well, as things are drawing close to critical action, I do believe that anyone who is privy to these missions, these objectives, should certainly undergo the most scrutiny as possible. So, Trauma and Machine, we will determine their real identities and determine if they are a liability or can be safely used.
My sister certainly knows Machine's true identity. I am not overly worried about him. He is a simpleton.
I am more interested in him as a. If your sister has any attachment to him.
I do know that she fornicated with him even when we were still with father. An old history, certainly.
Oh, that is interesting. I wonder if I ever ran across the fellow.
Is it your desire to meet any of these men in your employ through me?
I think if they are to be part of some of these critical stages, then yes, I would like to make a personal assessment. Bring them in when you find a good time. I do not think that part is urgent.
As you wish.
You have given me much to think about and much to hope for. It is late and you look tired. Let us retire to the bathhouse and soak away some of the stress and filth of the night's activities.
Of course. He bows and will follow her to the bathhouse. I don't really have anything else to report if we want to move
Right.
to Jotoro.
Cool.
I think
And
we are switching to Jotoro.
sounds good. So, as Yin and Yang and Kumiko head out to the bathhouse to continue the discussion and contemplate the various actions that the both of them can take, the camera zooms out over the city of Icarus. 2 days pass, and the explosion at Watanabe R&D headquarters takes place. 2 days after the explosion, a visitor calls on Kumiko in her office. Kumiko, you would see Jotaro approach your office through the cameras that are on the hallway, and as you whip around, you hear a knock on the door.
I would call out, "Come in, the door is unlocked," to signal both to them and to anyone outside who I'm assuming I have some bouncers and thugs around.
And
That it's okay for him to enter.
the people at the door, they step aside, and you see a familiar face walk in. At this point, it's only Jotaro who's here. He walks in, and you have never seen Jotaro. You've never met Jotaro personally. You've seen him in, various files you keep on the various enemies of Takeda Corporation, and he walks in, and Jotaro is about 6'1", very tall for his lineage. The token does justice to his appearance. He has extremely sharp and focused eyes, and he has an air about himself. Kumiko, he has an air about himself that a part of you wishes Yang would have. Jotaro knows he's a scion of a megacorp. He is unafraid of any surroundings he places himself in, and he has this bravado / machismo plus this total control of his self and his surroundings that it is an interesting combination to see. And he walks in and he gives you a bow.
You want to switch to the office scene, Zyper?
Oh, sorry.
Just tell me. Yep.
And he bows and he says, "It is a pleasure to meet you, Kumiko. May I call you Kumiko?
Of course. And might I call you Jotoro?
He bows again. Yes, that would please me very much. Formality is a thing of the past for me.
She raises an eyebrow. Well, this is an unexpected pleasure. And she goes behind her desk and motions to a chair in front of it. Please be seated.
Jotaro sits down and he looks at you, Kumiko, contemplates for a couple of minutes. You, I assume, would have heard about the news at the R&D location that I oversee.
Ah, yes. Allow me to offer my sympathy for the damage done to your facility. These are dangerous and unpredictable times. Have you discovered the cause of the explosion?
They are dangerous and unpredictable times. And the cause is. And he kind of looks. You can see he wants to say something but thinks better of it. I'm here, Kumiko, to discuss how you and your organization can be assisted in your endeavors.
She smiles. Indeed. I think that we may have goals that could converge and work to the benefit of both of us.
Yes.
I do. Do you have anything specific in mind for such an alliance? Anything on your mind?
And he sits back for a bit. He thinks. I watched an old documentary once, Kumiko. It was called Life on the Savannah or something to that end. I don't quite remember. The visuals were breathtaking. The commentary, the presence, it was surreal. A sad reminder of what this world was and could have been. But something in that documentary caught my eye, something in particular. You see, it was this scene revolving around two lions fighting over a game. And on the sidelines were hyenas. The hyenas were waiting for either lion to be so very injured that they would not be able to put up a fight when the hyenas went in for the game. But Kumiko, let me assure you, those lions, they fought hard and long, and in the end there was one victor. The hyenas thought that the victor was defeated, weak, easy prey. They dove in. It was a glorious bloodbath. Have you seen what a lion can do to entities smaller, weaker than itself? And at that point is when Yang walks in, who's been following Jotaro, and Jotaro, without turning his head, and Kumiko, this is a little strange when he does this, without turning his head, and I see the cub has walked in.
Jotaro, it has been a while since I had seen you. Since your wedding day.
And Kumiko, without rolling anything, you can see that there's a wince, like a visible wince on Jotoro's face when Yang mentions the wedding day. Jotaro gets up elegantly, there's no forcefulness, there is no suddenness. He turns around and he gives you a bow, Yang, but his eyes are fixated on you, never taking his eyes off you. Yes, that was an odd sequence of events, I must say, Yang. One I never quite understood, but then again, what can one expect with inbreds like the Takedas?
He instinctively puts his hand down to his dashio, which hangs on his hip. Ah, Jotaro-chan, outwitted by a 15-year-old boy. Don't worry, Jotaro. My sister would have made a horrible bride.
That
I saved you the headache, I think.
may be, Yang, but she would have made an excellent toy in my bedroom. But nonetheless, we digress.
This is true, Kumiko says, jumping in, and Jotaro-san saw fit to honor me with this unscheduled visit, and just as you were arriving, he shared with me an interesting metaphor about two lions fighting over prey in a savanna with the hyenas waiting at the periphery to take advantage. And I assume in this metaphor, Hiro and I, we are the scavengers. It is true enough that we have waited long for the opportunity to strike, but we are no scavengers. We too are lions. We were driven out of the pride and have been building our strength so that we can not only acquire the game, but also reclaim the pride. Takeda Enterprises is mine by birthright. But I am not one to quibble over phrasing. Like you, I see that the opportune moment is upon us. Events converge. And despite our differences, I see that I am not the only person perceptive enough to note this. Let us not ruin what is potentially a mutually beneficial alliance by opening old wounds.
Jotaro turns to you, Kumiko, and he bows again, this time with a little more respect. He turns to Yang. She speaks the truth. Her words carry wisdom. If only there were more advisors like her in the Watanabe Corporation, but that is neither here nor there. I am here to propose not an alliance, because that would be foolish. There can be no alliance between Watanabe and Takeda unless you plan to give me your sister as a toy, Yang. But then again, I digress. What I propose is a cessation of hostilities. Watanabe will not come after anyone connected to Takeda, except for the Takeda Empire itself. In turn, Watanabe will provide useful intelligence on key strategic initiatives that the Takeda Corp is currently undertaking. The hope here is that you can potentially delay it, destroy it. I don't care.
My intention is to kill father and have his will rewritten so his bastard will no longer inherit, and instead Kumiko will inherit Takeda. And at that time, if Kumiko sees fit to end hostilities with Watanabe, then so be it. And as for my sister, well, perhaps that can be arranged. I am in contact with her once more.
She is a weak creature with habits that, while make her unpredictable, may also be the key to her influence. She might be convinced to something that would please you in the future, but the way I see that is perhaps just icing on the cake.
But it would secure an alliance through blood, perhaps. Nothing so important as Kumiko's Takeda, simply a cousin.
It is true.
Jotaro nods his head when you guys are discussing that.
I do not believe you will like what you get, Jotaro.
I do not wish to like it. What I wish to do with it is best left to do with something that you do not like.
You may end up dead. I have never known you to be a strong man. I think my sister might break you.
Yang, give me a notice plus wisdom.
You notice the little twitch.
Cool. When you say that, you see a facial twitch on the face, but it is quickly cut off. You also feel that you can hear fabric flexing, unnaturally flexing, and then you kind of notice like the body language of Jotaro. For a moment, you can see that it is like poised for attack, and then you suddenly hear the fabric kind of go, kind of ease up again, and you see Jotoro's body relax. You get the sense that there is definitely more to him than when you last met him.
Kumiko, when looking at both of them, and she may not know Jotaro well enough to recognize those subtle signals in him, but she knows Yang, and his sudden tension would have put her on alert. But as they both relax a bit, she takes her hand out from under the desk and places it on top again. I think that Chiako, this discussion of her is perhaps a bit premature, perhaps should be tabled for another time. I have every confidence in our ability to persuade her to cooperate in some way, but as Yang says, perhaps you would not like the result, but that is not my concern. You spoke of providing us with resources that could help us with information.
Yes. The first
too.
one that I would like to let you know is, and he kind of waits. It may come off as a little unsubtle, but I am an impatient man. I cannot wait months for a grand scheme to come about and leave a black eye for Takeda. The explosion at the R&D facility must be immediately answered, and the effects of that answer must be felt by Takeda personally. My
Kumiko.
spies have reported that a very large shipment of R&D equipment, specifically gen engineering R&D equipment that would put Takeda at par with Watanabe, is coming into town 1 week from now.
If you're looking for hired thieves, I do not know that that is really, well, important to us. And no, I have a plan much grander than that, Jotaro-chan.
What
Let
would
us
that?
cut off the head now. Give us what we need, and we will kill my father. And then Takeda will belong to Kumiko, and you will not have to worry about the Kitty Enterprises any longer.
With that, Jotaro kind of raises his eyebrow.
Yes, we are perhaps closer to action than you may have believed or understood. As I said, events are converging. But I am not one to reject any information that I can potentially use to my benefit. And so I will hear more about this shipment.
This shipment
Is it?
that arrives in 2 weeks, I do not need it to be stolen. I need it to be destroyed. I will know the exact itemized cost of that shipment. I will make it whole to you, Kumiko, once you have taken over. Stealing it is of no use. Takeda will steal it back. It needs to be destroyed at sea.
Yang looks over at Kumiko with a kind of a smirk. Well, I do know of some way to perhaps destroy it without any cost to either of us. Just lead my sister. She is easily manipulated. I think we can do this, Kumiko, yes?
Oh, yes. I think your sister will jump at the chance to blacken the eye of your father in any way. As a sign of good faith, I think that we can undertake this task, and when it is accomplished, you will know our competence, and we will expect more support from you.
You will get my support. And he looks at both of you and he says, I would not make a move on the head just yet. And Yang, give me a what would this be? Give me an evasion saving throw.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Ah.
So when Jotaro says that, Yang and Kumiko, you see Jotaro for a moment. Next thing you know, Yang, Jotaro has swung by you, pulled the blade out of your scabbard, and he has it in a kill position at your neck. This is merely a demonstration, Yang, and I was slow. That bastard son that you keep talking about, he is augmented. He is with your father at all times. He does not sleep when your father sleeps. He does not eat or drink when your father eats or drinks. He runs a life entirely opposite to your father, which means he is protecting your father all the time. He then flips the sword around, gives it back to you in the traditional way. You may wish to take the head out, or you may wish to give me some time to find out how you can neutralize the bastard son. The choice is yours.
Hold on, I'm thinking what I'm gonna do here. Yang takes the blade back, swipes it out of Jotoro's hand angrily, and begins to reach for his katana to draw it immediately.
And Kumiko will say, Yang, stand down.
He's standing there in kind of a Aiajutsu stance as if he's going to draw it and strike in one motion, but then slowly takes his hand off the hilt of the blade.
Actually, give me a mental save.
Okay.
Okay. So you are able to bring your anger in control and heed Kumiko's words.
As he does that, he takes a deep breath and takes a step back, staring at Jotaro, but saying nothing.
Very good. Jotaro, you are fast and strong. And I appreciate this demonstration of what perhaps we might be facing with the bastard son. But I have come to deeply believe that true power is not in strength or speed. It is in knowledge and cunning and discipline. And I have that in great amount. And the more knowledge you can provide me, the more powerful I will be. So, we will take this into consideration. But, in the future, I will not tolerate disrespect in my own establishment. Is that understood?
And Jotaro, this time he bows, but it's not the respectful bow, and he has a smirk on his face as he does that. And he looks at both of you. Then he raises his head, straightens up, and walks out of the door. You guys are free to RP any follow-on discussion after that.
Well, that was a meeting that I have mixed feelings about. I am Sorry for your wounded pride. I can see that you wish to fight him and that you feel your honor was diminished.
He doesn't respond. He's just staring at the door.
But we must remember that always, always keep the long plan in mind. Never let our impulses get in the way of our truest desires. Do not let ourselves lose what we want the most for what we want in the moment. You will have your chance. I will not forget that disrespect to me or to you. The opportunity will present itself, and he will not be expecting it.
He's a fool. If Chiako is one thing, it is dangerous. Let him have her. She'll peel off his face in a day.
Perhaps having something like that be his end is the most satisfying revenge of all.
And if they are married and no other heirs, then perhaps Amaterasu will have control of both Takeda and Watanabe.
She pauses, and that is a possibility I had not considered. You are growing wise, Yang.
It is your mentorship, of course. The long game, as you say.
Indeed. You are looking even beyond what I had been. This is very good. Of course, it means that we will need to develop our relationship with Chiako.
Yes. I suggest we talk to Chiako about the shipment, and if she can call in this Mr. Sachs and his air force, they can easily destroy the shipment from the air.
That sounds approximately what I had in mind. Well, good. Let us arrange this.
I do warn you about Chiako. She is, well, unpredictable. She could give offense here.
If you are able to stand your ground when given such offense as Jotoro gave you, I think I can handle your sister. And do not forget, we are acquainted.
As you say. Shall I call for her then?
Yes, please do.
He flips out his comm pad and sends Chiako a text. Meet me at the Lotus Club immediately. Every session I earned to hate someone in this game over and over and over. Gotta kill that person, gotta kill that person.
I know, the list never gets shorter.
Does it? You kill them and two more pop up. Yen got her vengeance. When do I get mine?
So you just got summoned via phone call by Yang.
Yeah.
Cool. I forgot I was muted. So somewhere across Icarus 1, Yin gets a message from her brother asking her to meet him at the club.
Yin will, of course, leave Dean's home and make her way over to the club. And on her way, she will send Yang a message that she's coming. She will be there momentarily.
Yeah, Yang relays that information to Kumiko.
Kumiko nods and begins to fiddle with her appearance. She always likes to make a perfect impression.
I'm assuming that Yang, you will meet Yin first in that
Yep.
in the room that you generally work out of, correct?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
The ultimate champagne room.
The
right
ultimate
there.
champagne room, yes. So eventually, Yin makes her way to the lotus blossom. This time, the guard at the door doesn't stop her. He knows her by face. He knows why she's here. She makes her way eventually to the lotus blossom, the chairman's room, the ultimate champagne room in Icarus One. The door opens. Yang is sitting at his usual table. Yin walks in. Go ahead, you guys.
Yang is seated with a bottle of sake on the table. It's not opened. There's 2 shot glasses. Or actually, they would probably be cups. Ah, Yin. Thank you for coming.
Of course, brother. And she enters. She'll make sure to close the door, making sure it's sealed before making her way over beside Yang. She sits down with arms on the back of the chair, crossing her legs and looking over to her brother. So what do I owe the pleasure this evening?
Well, although you have not introduced me to your friends, I thought I should introduce you once again to mine. Kumiko wants to speak to you.
Ah. Interesting.
If we are to take down Takeda, well, she should have some say in what we do, since she is the true chairwoman of Takeda Enterprises.
That I will not deny. When are we meeting, Kumiko?
Now, I will take you up.
All right. Yin rises from her seat.
Yang sits for a moment and says, Chiako, mind yourself.
I will make sure to do as such, Hiro. Thank you for the warning.
He stands up, walks to the door, kind of leans past Yin and hits a button to open it. Come. We do not want to keep her waiting.
Good, I can feel the tension rising already. Yin will follow Yang out.
Steps past her, heads to the elevator, steps inside, hits the button to whatever penthouse this place has. As they're in the elevator, he's just kind of looking over Chiako. His face is devoid of expression. Last time they had spoke, they were fairly irritated at one another. He just lets the elevator go up in silence.
There's definitely more of an air to Yin, kind of the way she holds herself now. It's a lot more confident than she has been holding herself really in the past. In the past few weeks, it's definitely, there's something that's changed. There's the shoulders back, kind of more head held high. More of a confidence in her walk, but she stands in the elevator. She just doesn't look over towards Hiro, just staring at the doors, waiting, hands behind the back.
When the door is open, Yang waves for Chiaka to walk through. Come this way. When he walks out into the hall, he turns and walks down a I don't know. Maybe Slip, you should describe what it looks like on the way to your office.
Mm, um, well, you're passing through the penthouse. Part of the penthouse is, well, this suite is dedicated to VIP visitors. And if you're going through the public area, you can see beautiful hostesses and gentlemen lounging around in here, and dimly lit interior with lots of plush furniture. Smell of incense and whatnot. And outside the door to the office, there's almost always one or two large, muscular men, obviously armed, looking around the room and also just keeping guard over the door. And there's strangely a young, well, not a young woman, almost just an older girl, young teenage girl who is sitting on a chair nearby as well. It's hard to determine what her role is. You can see that there's probably a spot on above the door where there's a camera that can see people approaching, or that can observe the room from the office.
Yin will take in all the sights, seeing the guards, seeing the girl, looking up at the camera. As she walks, she stares at the camera, raising her eyebrows to it, almost in kind of a greeting. Even if no one's on the other side watching, she kind of acknowledges it, puts her head back down, following Yang a few paces behind him.
One of the guards just reaches out with his knuckles, probably, and just raps on the door. And a voice says, "Come in."
Yang steps forward, pushes the door open, looks back at Ian, nods for her to enter.
Yin nods to Yang, walking past him and entering the room. Her eyes gaze around, taking it all in, and her gaze, I guess, Kumiko standing there, falls on her.
Yeah, Kumiko is still standing a few feet from the door, and she returns Yin's praising glance, and after a moment says, "Welcome, Chiako. It has been many years."
It has. You look. And Yin will look Kumiko up and down. Different.
Well, yes, my days as a humble governess are far behind me. I quite prefer my current surroundings and hope to further improve my position. And you, Yin, Chiako, you look both the same and a bit different. Please be seated. And she walks over behind her desk, and she's indicated a chair in front of the desk, and she stands behind the desk and waits.
Yin will pause momentarily before looking over at Yang and then continuing her way into the room, taking a seat in the chair, feeling it out, looking around.
Yeah, as you pass, Yang shuts the door behind you and walks over a ways towards the wall and just kind of leans against it with his arms crossed, just watching.
Kumiko remains standing, looking down at Chiako for another moment before taking a seat. These are strange times that bring our little family back together. One I did not expect. But seeing as you are back in the picture, so to say, and have proven useful to my endeavors recently, I thought that we should meet and discuss future cooperation.
Well, Kumiko, the future cooperation, I am assuming, is assisting in helping you and my brother take down our father. Is this correct?
Kumiko nods. My motives are as plain as day.
I don't care about your motives. I will be plain with that. All I care about is killing my father. I do hope that Yang made that clear. I do not care about titles, nor what you want with Takeda. You can keep it. I just want the blood.
Well, though I appreciate your permission, I certainly do not require it. And I, for one, do not care about the fate of your father. At one time, it was my desire to kill him as well. In the end, I decided that his humiliation would serve my revenge better. So you are welcome to that.
To know. So what is it exactly that you wish to discuss? Is it to clarify, to plan out, or something completely different?
We do have a possible opportunity to blacken your father's eye that has presented itself, some information that has come into my possession about a valuable shipment. But I think first we need to establish
Trust.
You've hit the nail on the head, Yang.
Sure. What exactly do you require of me?
Well, for one, you obviously have neglected to mention to Yang your employers and backers, their nature and identity, and what their motives are. We need to know that they do not cross mine.
I have spoken to them, particularly about this. They have no desire to get involved, as it does not forward their own motives. They have spoken to me about this. I will not be receiving any resources regarding this from them, as it's not their interest. Therefore, it will not cross your path.
But it was in their interest to destroy the warehouse at the docks.
Indeed, because the technology, and I'm assuming that my brother told you about it, was, well, in essence, theirs. Therefore, it was their business.
I see.
The same technology that we had planned to use against father that now we do not have. Because of you.
And Yin will spin her gaze over to Yang, eyes narrowing. That's where you're wrong, brother. I have the technology. If you do not remember correctly, it is in my possession.
Or is it?
Yes. And in my possession, it will remain.
I see. Well, I think that this is a subject for further conversation. But at the moment, I think that what is it that this entity has been providing you that has made it worth your time? You are obviously not one who is motivated by the desire for wealth and power, as otherwise perhaps you would be pursuing Takeda Enterprises.
They have provided me with something that I have always wanted and needed in my life. Respect.
Yang is over there rolling his eyes.
So these people ask you to work for them and do violence for them, and in return they give you respect, and you believe this to be genuine?
It is not exactly like that. But sure, there are other benefits. But the primary one being that I can be my own entity, and they support me in that. Support that I have never really gotten. Therefore, it is very tantalizing.
Giaco, perhaps someday you will realize that the only respect worth having is self-respect. And that you can't ever have that while you are a slave to this. And she indicates, the stuff over your face. But that is neither here nor there. I do not seek to control your life, only to determine if you are a reliable resource. After all, can I trust you if you can't even really trust yourself?
And Yin places her elbows on the table, folds her hands, places her chin on top of my hands, looking straight at Kumiko. After everything that has occurred, I am much more confident in my own abilities and can safely say that both the confidence and respect that I've had for myself has greatly improved.
Have you been seeing a psychiatrist, sister?
You could say that.
Believe it or not, Giaco, I am very pleased to hear this. I always felt it a great tragedy that because of your suffering, you became so self-destructive. I wish you only the best in achieving your goals.
Thank you. I am working on freeing myself of these vices.
If there is anything I, or with my resources, could do to help you, please do not hesitate to come to me.
Well, sure. This, and she will gesture to the apparatus on her face, needs to go.
I take it that what you breathe in through that is a very difficult one to let go of.
Indeed. Something I've struggled with. Something I wish to be rid of.
There are perhaps substances out there that could ease withdrawal, or perhaps even technology that could assist you. I'm sure that you have looked into all of these.
Indeed. There are some other things, other avenues that I will be inquiring about. As of late, new discoveries. But this will be solved soon. I will be
Yes, wonderful, wonderful, sister.
Do you have something to say, Hiro?
Yes, I do. Why are we speaking of this? This has nothing to do with the downfall of father.
We speak of this because I needed to establish that your sister had still some spark to be the master of her own destiny. That she was not crumble at the first sign that these pleasures, these indulgences would be removed.
I would be more worried that whoever she serves now, this Mr. Sachs, is a surrogate father. And we all know Yin would do anything for her father.
Like I said, Yang. These people have no interest in Takeda.
That is my point exactly. If they tell you not to kill father or to cross us, you will do it.
But if they have no interest, why would they care?
Priorities change. They may tell you they have no interest, but who knows? Perhaps if you told us more about this organization you work for, then we can just help you decide.
Help me decide. You mean tell me what to do?
Help you decide if they are playing you for the fool. You do not have a very good history with such things.
How about this? I will keep these affairs out of what they're doing. But I keep my affairs to myself. I don't need you taking care of me. My primary goal is to kill father. That is it. Nothing will change that, no matter what it is.
Then you should be using all your resources at your disposal. And if that means using your employer for those resources, then you should be doing it.
Fine. But I have access to my own resources as well, brother. Which I shall be using for your and Kumiko's benefit.
Well, that is good to know, but that is not what I had in mind.
Then what is it you had in mind?
As Kumiko was alluding to, sister, we need those helicopters.
That might be out of the question. At least theirs.
You have a helicopter of your own that I'm not aware of, sister?
I might.
Really?
Who knows? I could manage on getting one. That is no problem.
He looks up in the ceiling like he's just flabbergasted by what she's saying. And who will fly it? I understand that you could go in and kill the pilot, and then what?
You asked for a helicopter, you did not ask for a pilot, Hiro.
He looks over at Kumiko and... Do you see what I have to deal with?
This conversation does seem to have evolved in a childish way. I've put away childish things. I am interested only in achieving our goals. The question is Yin an asset or something in the way or something to ignore? The opportunity to kill your father will present itself. There is no doubt in my mind, and it will happen not in the far future, but in the near. If you wish to be present and able to participate in that, then I suggest you find a way to make yourself useful to me.
Fine.
Very
I
good.
will.
Because it does not seem like your new employers will help you kill father, if what you have said is true.
Well, I did not know the technology that I possess was useless.
Because of the back door you put into it, or your employer did.
What about it?
Is that not the technology? I thought you said you
Yes.
were alluding to the... Sorry.
Yes, that one. But if you consider it useless,
Oh no, I suppose it is not, as long as when you use it, you're not hacked yourself.
don't worry about that. I won't be. I'm very confident in that.
Speaking of which, what has become of that neuro fellow that has been the cause of so much consternation?
He is. No longer a problem. And Yin has kind of a very satisfied look on her face. She leans back in the chair, crossing her legs.
Well, I was not concerned that he was a problem. I was more interested if he had anything interesting to say before
Besides-
he became not a problem.
Besides crying and begging me not to kill him, or to kill him, I should say. No.
Well, and Kumiko smiles. It appears that we have more interests in common than I would have suspected.
Indeed. He lasted longer than I thought he would. Much to his dismay.
It may have caused me some amusement to be able to observe that. I am sorry that it wasn't recorded.
I can describe it for you if you want.
I might find that very pleasant on another day.
I can reenact it if you'd like. Not on you. On one of your lowers, of course. Unless you're into it.
She smells well. That is not my usual part. Perhaps if I, the next time one of my subordinates displeases me, I may allow you to do so. See if you have any real talent for it.
I love to get better at my craft. But besides pleasant hobbies, is there anything else we need to speak about?
As we look forward to this possible cooperative venture, I would like a more detailed account of your assets and what you bring to the table. And that way we can determine the best way to go about this.
Well, I'm sure Yang can attest. I might not have seen much. My skills in assassination and infiltration are excellent, beyond compare, even to Hiro himself, as he has been caught a few times. She'll look over to him.
The way of the samurai is not the way of the shinobi, sister.
You tried. I saw you trying. I could teach you a few things if you'd like. I don't mind.
That is fine. Skulk in the corners and the shadows. It is the way of the peasant, not the way of the warrior.
Yes, but the way of the peasant, as you put it, can get us access into those places with high security that requires a more light and deft touch and straight brutality, brother.
Certainly, you are skilled at staying to the shadows, likely earned from all your days in opium dens. There's not much light there.
Yes, because I've never trained a day in my life.
Kumiko gets you can tell she's getting a little frustrated at the little sibling bickering again. It is an established truth that there is always something that we can learn from allies or enemies. To blind ourselves to that is ridiculously foolish. Also, one can never possess every skill, and so to know what everyone brings to the table, whether it is our skill or theirs, is important information to have. Infiltration, information gathering, these things are useful skills. Do you have any contacts or ability or knowledge of demolitions?
I have no desire nor any knowledge of demolitions, though, based on some new friends and contacts I have made, I should be able to find someone who could do some sort of demolitions.
Machine, no doubt.
Besides machine.
I've heard of this machine. He seems reliable.
Very.
This is good.
Finally, something we agree on.
Indeed.
Will wonders never cease? Well, Chiako, I hope to be seeing more of you in the future. Are you open to further communication and cooperation?
Of course.
Very well
As
then.
long as I'm not occupied, I will be available for you.
I see. Well, you may want to decide what is important to prioritize in your life. But as I said, I am not seeking to control you. I shall have you over again sometime to discuss things and perhaps have a formal tea.
That sounds lovely.
As family, we should become reacquainted.
Indeed. It has been too long.
Yang, thank you for bringing your sister here for this conversation. Is there anything that perhaps I have neglected to ask at this time? Or is it time to escort her back to her form of transportation?
Yang turns to Kumiko and bows. I can think of nothing to discuss currently.
Very well then. And she bows slightly to Chiako. It is good to see you again.
Yin will get up from her seat and bow to Kumiko as well. It is good to see you too, Kumiko, and I look forward to assisting you in getting what you rightfully deserve in terms of Takeda.
And I, in turn, look forward to listening to your father squeal.
Yin will turn around, make her way to the exit, looking over at Yang.
Yang gives a bow to Kumiko, turns and follows Yin towards the elevator.
Yin looks over to Yang as they get into the elevator. She seems nice.
He doesn't respond. He simply says, "You are being a fool."
Am I?
Yes.
How so?
You are not thinking clearly. You are not putting what is important first.
I am. What is
You are
important?
not.
Killing father.
And you are associating yourself with an employer who has no desire to assist you in this task. Why?
Why should they assist me in everything I do? They are completely separate from what I do.
Then they are not worth associating with.
Father, unlike you, I am not going to kill myself after we kill father. I would like to live a life after this, and I plan to. Therefore, I need to make connections outside of this and have something lined up. Understand?
I do not think you should throw your life away. That is not what I am saying.
I don't think you should throw yours away either. That's what I'm saying. Future plan, Yang.
I have no future plan. My plan is to destroy father, restore Kumiko to the chairman seat of Takeda, and then disappear. It does not matter what I wish. My focus is single-minded. I do not have many masters. You may only have one lord, one shogun to command you. To do so corrupts your soul. It corrupts your vision. It corrupts your destiny. You may have one master. This is the way of Bushido, sister.
Hiro, I have discovered that having someone else as your master is not beneficial. I will have those that I work with and that I work for. But the only master that I have is myself. And as I spoke of before, as I thought of myself as a tool, no longer you, brother, are the real tool of the two of us. I hope you understand that.
There is... Sister, if you think that you are not someone else's tool, then you are lost. Every man, every woman, they obey someone.
I'm not a slave, though. I have options. You have decided to take none. But that is your choice. My choice is to have freedom after this. Be free of father. And to have a life past. What will happen once he dies? To you?
I wish none.
That
Is
your choice.
my choice. Exactly. I only say this because this is dangerous for both of us. But only in so much as that we must succeed. If we fail what we're doing now, the hardships we bring upon ourselves, it matters not. We must not fail. We must be single-minded. If you can use this new contact of yours, this new employer to our benefit, so be it.
We will not fail, Hiro. We will not. There is no option of failure. Only death awaits.
The elevator opens as they reach the ground floor, and Yang turns to his sister. We will see. I am not optimistic.
I am. Because there's no room for optimism. What is there? Have a good night, brother. She'll give him a wave before making her way off the elevator towards the front doors of the bar and out into the night.
He doesn't leave the elevator. He simply hits the button back to the penthouse, frowning as the door closes between he and his sister.
And with that, as the siblings part and an intriguing conversation with Kumiko, various people start dispersing over Icarus 1, and as the camera zooms out and over Icarus 1, screen fades to black and the session comes to a close. With that, I'm stopping the recording.
Nice.